Chris. It's good to see you again. How are you doing?
Hey, Taylor. It's good to see you, too. I'm doing pretty good this week. Much better than last week.
That's good to hear. Thank you for filling out the Beck anxiety inventory in the waiting room for me. Can I take a look at this with you? Thank you. Let's see how you compare to last week. So, last week you scored yourself a 28. And this week, you scored yourself a 22. That's great. I can tell there is a positive change in your affect. What have you noticed that has been helping?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I do feel a lot better this week. I was using the progressive muscle relaxation techniques that you taught me throughout the week, but was kind of having difficulty remembering to utilize the techniques. I'm just wondering how CBT will help with my anxiety.
I'm really happy to hear that you've been attempting to utilize these techniques, and you should be really proud of yourself. As I explained before, the underlying concept of CBT is that our thoughts and feelings play a fundamental role in our behaviors. While you can't control every aspect of the world or other people's thoughts or their actions, you can take control of how you interpret and how you deal with things in your environment. When people learn to evaluate their thinking in a more realistic and adaptive way, they experience improvement in their emotional state and in their behavior. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand.
And according to your Beck anxiety inventory, your rating of anxiety has gone down in the last week. Over these next few weeks, your rating should decrease even more when we start to question and modify your core beliefs. Do you remember what your core beliefs are?
Well, I remember you explaining automatic thoughts, which are typically negative thoughts that spring up spontaneously and are accepted as true and tend to negatively influence your feelings and behaviors. Automatic thoughts are related to core beliefs.
That's right. Our core beliefs are our most central ideas about
ourselves, others, and the world. They begin from childhood and are often overgeneralized and rigid.
Yes, great job. The general themes of core beliefs are helplessness, unlovable, and worthlessness. With that being said, is it okay if we move on?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, great. So, I would like an update on the medications you've been taking. You've been taking melatonin for your sleep disturbances. Have you been taking your meds consistently, and have you seen a change in your sleep disturbances?
Yeah, I've been taking them consistently. I found that taking the meds hasn't made a change in how long it takes for me to fall asleep, but I'm no longer waking up in the middle of the night.
Okay, that's great to hear. Seeing how you've only been taking the melatonin for a short amount of time, I am very pleased that they have decreased your difficulty staying asleep. I would like for you to continue to use the melatonin, and I believe we will see a positive change in your ability to fall asleep. I would also like an update on some of the things that have been going on with you this week, but first we should set our agenda. What are some of the things you would like to discuss?
Okay, that sounds good. I definitely want to talk about my sleep disturbances. I'd also like to talk about issues with my ex, Millicent Gergich, and women in general. I tried to go on a group date. I also have a doctor's appointment coming up.
Okay, we can do that. I see that you brought back the thought record that was your homework from the last week. Can we take a look at this? Were you able to finish the homework, and overall, did you think the assignment was helpful?
Yeah, I finished it, and I thought it was helpful. It made me consider how I was having certain thoughts was affecting my feelings.
Okay, that's great. So since this was your first thought record, we just did the 3-column. So looking at your first column, it describes your automatic thoughts. You put that you are going to die alone, and you rated this belief as 95. And under the next column of cognitive distortions, you put that this was all or nothing thinking. Do you think any other distortions could apply to this? I have the list of them right here.
Well, I guess that I could also count jumping to conclusions because I'm utilizing fortune telling.
Right. That's exactly right. So I'm going to write that down here. So then under your irrational response, you put, I've had multiple relationships and maybe I haven't found the right person yet. So you rated that belief as an 85. So those are a totally different response to believing that you will die alone, and it seems that you believe both of them in a high degree. So how did you feel when you were doing this?
At first, it was difficult to think of other ways of reframing my response because my mind automatically goes to the negative thoughts. I noticed that my negative thoughts sent me into a spiral, and I just sat in my negative feelings. Looking back, I couldn't get out of these thoughts and wasn't able to recognize this until after the fact, and I was working on this homework. I did think about the strategies we discussed last session and with the progressive muscle relaxation and was able to utilize them sometimes, but not every time I was spiraling.
And you know what? That's okay. The more you do this, the better practice you will have, and it will become like a second nature to you. I just wanted to start you off with a 3-column worksheet so that you could connect how your thoughts and feelings are interconnected. You really seem to grasp this concept, and I don't think you would have been able to look back and connect these negative thoughts and feelings just a few weeks ago. You did a great job, and I'm really proud that you found time to work on this. I feel that you're becoming more aware of your distortion and how these affect your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Do you remember what this sounds like?
Yeah, the cognitive triangle.
Right. We drew it so many times over the past few sessions, so I'm not surprised you remember exactly what I was talking about. Let's move on and prioritize our agenda. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. You stated you wanted to talk about your sleep disturbances, dating, and your upcoming doctor's appointment. How would you like to prioritize this?
Well, my sleep disturbances are getting better since I've been taking the medication. So if we don't get to it today, that's fine. Okay. I think I would prefer to discuss dating and then my doctor's appointment.
Okay, that works for me. So you said you wanted to talk about dating. You went on a group date. How did that go?
Yeah, so I went on a group date with some of my coworkers. I had an amazing conversation with this woman who had the same interests as me. We talked about exercising and shared some paleo recipes. I thought everything was going great. And by the end of the night, I asked her for her number, and she said she wasn't looking for a relationship. Later that night, I saw her leave with my boss. So then it just reminded me that every woman I come in contact with leaves me, and I will die alone. Melissa Gergich was the best thing to ever happen to me, and she left me. She was my personal best, and I will never find anyone better.
That sounds really frustrating, and I'm really sorry that you had that misconnection with that woman. I did want to introduce this 7-column worksheet for homework. I want to work together with you on this homework for this item on your agenda, and then you will be able to complete it on your own. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay. So for the 7-column record, you begin with the situation or trigger. The next column is your feelings towards the situation. You're following so far, right?
Yeah. So my situation would then be group dating.
Right.
And my feelings would be sad and frustrated.
Okay. Sad and frustrated. And how would you rate those feelings on a scale of 0 to 100?
I would rate sad as 95 and frustrated as 80.
Okay. So next you're identifying and writing down your unhelpful thoughts or images.
So those would be my automatic thoughts, right?
Yes, exactly. As we discussed before, sometimes these automatic thoughts are presented as images. Right down at the bottom here, there are clues to help you if you forget what you need to write. So what would your automatic thoughts be here?
I thought back to I'm going to die alone, and I saw images of my gravesite and no one mourning my death.
Okay, so let's write that down. I am going to die alone, and some images, your gravesite with no one mourning you. So the next 2 columns are facts that support the unhelpful thought and facts that provide evidence against the unhelpful thought. I'm emphasizing the word facts because it could be possible that you're stating opinion. So what are some facts that support this thought?
Well, I am alone right now, and I am getting old.
Okay, well, you are single right now, so that is a fact. So we can write that down because it is a fact. Just said that twice. But what is the evidence against this thought?
I don't really know.
Do you have no one in your life who would mourn your death?
Well, no. I guess I do have a lot of friends and employees and some family members.
Right, so there is potential that you could never marry, but can you see that you won't necessarily die alone?
Yeah, my friends are really important to me, and I feel a lot better when I'm around them.
That's great to hear. I've noticed in our sessions that they mean a lot to you. You bring them up time and time again, and they seem to help you through your problems. So can I put that down as evidence against?
Yeah, I can believe that.
Okay. So you have family and friends who care about you. So next you'll stop and take a breath and just kind of calm your body and calm your mind down and attempt to find an alternative, more realistic perspective on the situation. Do you remember the technique that you liked best for this?
Yeah, I liked using others as a reference point. It's easier for me to figure out what I would say to my friends or employees if they're going through the same situation.
Right. So what might you say to Ben if he were to tell you that he was going to die alone?
I would tell him that he just needs to find the right person and that they will come into his life when he least expects it. He's a great guy and he has a lot of people in his life who truly care about him.
Wow, that's actually a great response. Based on what you told me, Ben seems like a great guy, and that response makes total sense for a guy like him. It sounds extremely similar to what I might say to you. Would you believe that?
Now that I say it out loud, I can see someone else saying that to me, and I can believe that. I believe that everything happens for a reason, and it might not have been the right time or person for me.
Okay, so let's write that down. Should I just put what you just said, that it might not have been the right time or person?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next column is to re-rate your emotions. So after having this alternative, more realistic perspective, how would you rate your feelings of sadness and frustrations?
I'd say maybe 30% for sadness and 25% for frustrations.
Wow, that's such a big change. You went from 95 to sadness to 30. And you went from 80 for frustration to a 25%. Does working through this worksheet give you new feelings?
Well, I'd have to say this makes me more hopeful. When I think about how I would make my friends feel better, I realize that those thoughts are true for me as well. I feel relieved because I feel so much pressure about being alone, and now I feel like fate will eventually bring the right person into my life. I feel like I can now see the bigger picture and not focus on one negative event.
Do you remember what that cognitive distortion is called?
Overgeneralizing. You see a single negative event as a never-ending pattern of defeat.
That's exactly right. Chris, you've done such a great job completing your 3-column worksheet, and now that we've moved on to the 7-column thought record, you did great. What do you think about this 7-column worksheet?
I really liked how I was challenged to think about evidence that support and are against my thoughts.
It is very challenging to think of evidence that does not support your thoughts, but I think when you are able to sit down and really think about the hard facts that do not support these thoughts, the best technique that we have found for you was to imagine that you were helping a friend or an employee through this issue. Does that sound like something you can do?
Yeah, I think I can handle this.
Okay, great. Is this a good time to move on to your next problem?
Yeah, I'd like to move on to my upcoming doctor's appointment.
Okay, what can you tell me about this problem?
As I stated before, I was diagnosed as a baby with a rare blood disorder.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that. Your parents were told you only had a few weeks to live, right?
Right. So throughout the years, I've had to go to the doctors on a regular basis to ensure that I'm still healthy.
I can't imagine how stressful that must be.
Yeah. Every time I go to the doctor, while I'm in the waiting room, I find myself consumed with excessive anxiety and worry, difficulty controlling this worrying, and restlessness. I always imagine the worst and believe each time that I'm going to be presented with the harsh reality that I will die.
Well, I can't imagine having to deal with that on a regular basis. Has this worrying and anxiety proven to be helpful for you?
No, I just work myself up so much, and then I go back, and so far everything's been fine, and it's been 40-some years.
And we do have to accept that while there is a possibility that you may potentially get bad news, so far you have not had any. What is the most realistic outcome at the doctor's office based on your history?
Now, the worst case scenario that could happen would...
Oh, I meant the most realistic outcome.
Right, okay. It could happen, but hasn't happened so far. So I guess the most realistic outcome is that my doctor's appointment will go well and nothing will go wrong.
Now, the worst case scenario, I know that's what you wanted to jump to, but that could happen, and that would be that you would get bad news. And we cannot be in denial about that. However, the best case scenario that could happen is what's been happening these past 40-some years, which is that you receive good news. From what we've discussed, you are an extremely healthy man for your age, and you continuously exercise and eat healthy.
Yeah, I take pride in my health.
So it seems to me that you are doing everything within your power to ensure that you are healthy. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I run 10 miles every day and stick to the paleo diet.
Dang. I can't do that, but so you're probably more in shape than I am. Would you agree that the most helpful thing for yourself would be to utilize your relaxation techniques?
Yeah, I don't know what else I could do to ensure that I'm healthy. So I guess I have to look over my mental health and control my anxious and worrying thoughts.
That's exactly right. Now, earlier you stated you were having difficulty remembering to utilize the relaxation techniques.
Yeah, when I'm starting to freak out, I just can't seem to remember to use the techniques.
Have you heard of something called a coping card?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so coping cards are used to contain short phrases or sentences for when people are experiencing anxiety, and these cards are portable, so they're easily acceptable. So I have a bunch of index cards here that I could laminate for you. The coping card that I would like for you to use would include the coping skills, so that if you had these anxious or worrying thoughts, you could take your card out and utilize your techniques. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if we created a coping card, would that help you remember the techniques? Or would you be able to find a place that you could keep it so that it was always nearby?
That would work so well for me. I could just stick the card in my wallet and then I would always have it with me. I'm just looking for a way to remember to use these techniques when I'm worked up.
Okay, great. That's exactly why we make these cards. So I would like to create this card for you based on the progressive muscle relaxation techniques, because that's what you stated previously was your favorite. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing I'm looking for.
Okay. So, do you remember how the progressive muscle relaxation technique works?
Yeah, the first step is, while inhaling, contract one muscle group, like your hand or upper thighs, for 5 seconds to 10 seconds, and then exhale and suddenly release the tension in that muscle group.
Okay. Do you want me to write a specific muscle group or just put muscle group?
Just put muscle group because I might like to change it up.
Okay, so I'll write that for your first step. And for the second step?
Give yourself 10 seconds to 20 seconds to relax, and then move on to the next muscle group.
Okay, so I'm going to write relax for 10 to 20 seconds and then move on to the next muscle group. Does that work?
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to word this next one, but the next step is while releasing the tension, try to focus on the changes you feel when the muscle group is relaxed.
Okay, so during this step, imagery is maybe helpful in conjunction with the release of the tension. So, imagining that stressful feelings are kind of flowing out of your body as you relax each muscle groups. So if I wrote, imagine your anxious thoughts flowing out of your body as you relax, does that work?
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that. Do you do this for your whole body?
That's up to you. You can do it for a specific amount of time or go through your whole body. How would you like me to word this? What do you think would be most helpful for you?
I think you should just write continue until fully relaxed.
Okay. How does that look?
That looks great. I'm so glad that I can have this with me.
Okay, so Chris, for this next week, I would like you to take out your coping card when you have these anxious or worrying thoughts. Specifically, I would like you to utilize it when you're in the waiting room of your doctor's office. How does that sound?
Yeah, I think I can do that.
Okay. So, I want to give you a summary of our fourth session. We started with talking about your mood, and we noticed an increase of improvement from last week. We reviewed your homework from last week, which was the three-column thought record, and processed how you were able to change your cognitions once you thought what you might say to your friends or employees who had these thoughts. Then we discussed automatic thoughts regarding dating, and we were able to come up with new feelings after utilizing the 7-column thought record. Then we discussed your upcoming doctor's appointment and created a coping card for you to utilize during your anxious thoughts. For homework, I assigned this 7-column thought record, which we already started. I feel that you were really engaged in this session and have a great understanding of CBT. Overall, how do you think this session went?
I feel like this session went well. I arrived here today feeling sad about the group date, but I feel a lot better about it. I understand that just because I'm not dating, I'm not alone in my life. I'm excited to use the coping cards, and I feel like I'll be challenged while using the 7-column worksheet, but I'm excited to try.
Awesome job, Chris. I'm really proud of the work you put in today and feel confident in your ability to challenge your thoughts. Please feel free to email me at any point this week if you have any questions about the assignment. And if not, I'll see you at our usual time next week. Have a good week.
Thanks. I'll see you next week.